And coming up on this week's show, we're on location on the Northumberland Line. We take a trip along the railway and chat to Northern about what comes next with this popular rail reopening. Plus, we chat about what else we're up to in this part of the world. So welcome to Green Signals from me, Nigel Harris, and
from me, Richard Bowker.
In the same room for only the third time in
I think so.
episode.
I think it is, yeah.
Anyway, it's all changed this week because we're on location. We've come up to the northeast to finally visit the Northumberland Line, which I've been looking forward to doing ever since it opened. And it was a jolly good morning, wasn't it? It's what a thrill it is actually to travel over a newly opened piece of railway from one end to the other.
And that's a really important point because it's not really a reopened bit of railway. I mean, they've relaid all the track. I hadn't realised it was all semaphore signal, and now it's all been re-signalled. So, and the stations are all new. So it is quite new. Having said that, I agree. I thoroughly enjoyed it, actually.
It is a new railway on the old formation, but no, I wasn't aware of that because it was a freight line, wasn't it? Like 5 trains of biomass a day down to Levenmouth. So it had just been on signal boxes.
Is that what it was, down to Levenmouth, right?
Signal boxes and semaphore signals, which was no good, of course, when they want to run a more intensive hourly passenger service, as well as integrating the freight service, which survives, which is why there's loops and double track sections and all the rest of it. But it's just great to see new railway infrastructure. I was looking at the little signalling cabinets at the side of the line and clean ballast and all the rest of it.
You got quite excited, I can
Well, it's just good to see because we don't see it that often, do we?
No.
The only thing I'm not thrilled about, and this is not sort of personal at all, is that the same thing afflicted the Borders Railway, is that the stations are always pretty ugly, aren't they? They're always quite East German. They're done for cheapness, I guess.
And for functionality.
Yeah.
So they do work, you know, and because they're new, you can lay it out. And so I kind of get that. I know what you mean, but nonetheless, I thought it was pretty.
I know you can't waste costs, and it's easy for us to sit here and make comment. I do wonder if there's some things they could do to soften the edges and make it a bit less brutal.
And for visually impaired people, an awful lot of very bright stuff, tactile stuff. Yeah. I tell you, one of the things that was really nice to see was full car parks.
Yes, it's open since December.
Yeah.
So it's only half a year old, and all the car parks nice and full, and a buzz on the train as well, with people getting on and getting off like they've been doing it all their lives, and you're chatting about shopping and grandchildren.
There's like a couple of guys who'd just gone just to see what everybody was excited about. They'd just gone for a day out, up and down.
Well, they saw that there were 4 or 5 of us and we couldn't find seats to go. Well, we'll move. We're only out for a ride out.
It was good. It was good.
It was so well done to everybody, really, because it's just great to see new railways. Richard's been editing already over a hot laptop in a Premier Inn. So here's some of our impressions of the Northumberland Line, hot off the press.
The railway between Ashington and Newcastle, once a busy line connecting important communities and industrial centres along its line of route, was a casualty of the beaching cuts in the 1960s. However, although it lost its passenger service, freight trains continued to use the line, primarily serving Levenmouth Power Station. The reintroduction of passenger services on the line has long been an aspiration for many years of Northumberland County Council, MPs and the thousands of people who live in the area. As a result of finally being awarded development funding from the Department for Transport in 2018, the Council has been working alongside partners since then to develop and implement the scheme. It finally opened to passengers in December 2024. It's very much a local scheme as well. The lead client has been Northumberland County Council, and although Network Rail has of course been involved, their role has been as part of a collaborative group driven forward by the County Council working closely with the Department for Transport. Reopening the line has not been without its problems though. Running late and over budget, 3 of the 6 stations are yet to be completed. Ashington, Newsham and Seaton Delaval are open, and on the day of our visit it was really good to see full car parks. Northumberland Park, Blythe Bebbside and Bedlington are still to be completed, and it would seem in some instances some way off being complete. Yet the line being reopened has already had a really positive impact on the area and the local communities it serves. It's clear that everyone is just delighted to see the railway finally back. We came to the Northumberland Line to see it for ourselves, and Nigel spoke first with Paul Henry, Programme Manager for the Northumberland Line, about the challenges that had been faced, but also the fact that it was already proving to be a triumph in terms of ridership.
I mean, I suppose two questions which you may be fed up with there, but why is it taking so long, and why has it cost so much? Because the original estimate's what, 166 million, and it's 290 short, just shy of 130 million over those costs. So why so long, and why so much?
So on timing wise, I think it's been well documented. There's been quite a few hurdles to get over from a construction wise. The project's a huge scheme, 6 stations plus all the infrastructure that goes along that, full new signalling system. There has been hurdles in the way that which we've had to overcome, and that's put delays on. We went from unexploded World War II devices to news at Seaton Delville, sorry. So anything that has been thrown at us on this scheme has been which has been a challenge, but unfortunately, these things come to us.
And the bridge behind you there, I think, went 30% over cost in itself, didn't it? It was.
If you look at that, it's a massive piece of infrastructure, as you can see. There's a lot of work and effort's gone into getting that road bridge in place, which was key and instrumental to the line to allow us to close the level crossing here in Ousum, which benefits those that are using the road still.
But you just talked then about new infrastructure, new signalling. Is it fair to describe this as a new railway on the old formation?
Potentially, yeah. I mean, obviously, it was used by freight. I mean, the last saw passenger services 60 years ago. As you imagine, that
Beaching closure.
60 years is, a lot has changed. So we needed to bring it up to modern standards. So effectively, new track, replacement of track. We brought additional track in places because the line was all single line. We've brought in double track in places and some passing loops as well. Whole new signalling system, as I've said before. So yeah, it reflects a modern railway now.
So it's slightly done differently. It's not a Network Rail project. So who sponsored this? It was a county council.
So it was, yes. So Northumberland County Council have been instrumental in bringing this line back into use. So working closely with the DFT, they've been, the main player, if you like, in bringing not only just the project to life, but all the build up to that and getting those campaigns up and running in the very early days, right through to what you see now in terms of stations being live.
And would it be a model for people elsewhere, for other local authorities to follow?
I think you've got to take each project on its own merit. You've got to look at who the funders are, who the client is, if you like, on a scheme, and you just got to look at it in the main. There's no one size fits all for a project, certainly of this scale. So you've got to take it on its own merit, I would think.
So what do you reckon the annual patronage is going to settle out at?
So I think,
early days, I do.
Yeah, so this year, obviously, we've seen some tremendous figures and probably, a little bit ahead of what we thought they would be. We think we'll probably come in the end of this year around the 900,000 mark and increase that to maybe 1.5 million in the year after once everything's settled down. But because we had a phased approach, it will take time to embed. We will see people from Newsroom, example, will then go to Blythe website when that opens. So once things settle down, we'll get a better idea.
The Northumberland Line is a real success story, but Northern still faces a significant number of challenges in other parts of the business. One of its senior leaders is Alex Hornby, Commercial and Customer Director, a man with a stellar reputation for delivering outstanding customer service in the bus industry. He's relatively new to the railway sector though, and so Nigel asked him how he intended to work the same magic with Northern.
So, Alex, here we are at Ashington, my first visit on this reopened railway. You're a 20-year busman, and I used to find it quite frustrating saying how wonderful bus seats were on Twitter, and all of a sudden you're in the railway. What prompted the move?
I think when I saw the job, it absolutely appealed to me. I think the scale of Northern, the purpose, the timing of it, the opportunity. I'm very much one of those people where I don't see challenges, I see opportunity. And I think, boy, are there lots of opportunities find in Northern, and I think that opportunity to really bring about transformation that I know everyone's really motivated to do here, I couldn't resist it.
Jolly good. Well, I mean, a lot of it is not Northern's fault, if you like. There's a lot of history in the two companies either side of the Pennines. We've had the Pacers hung around for far too long. The working agreements, which means Sundays and weekends, have been. There's an awful lot of it to go at. Where do you make a start on getting some kind of across the board improvement for customers, which is what you specialise in?
I think it's all about how do you localise things, Nigel. That's one thing that I really enjoy doing in bus, and really believe that a customer will typically only use one train or one bus a day. That's one thing that they're focused on. We know within Northern we've actually got pockets of great performance, and it's about building the confidence up into that whilst addressing the more difficult areas. It's such a vast network, you can't eat it all in one go. And in doing that, you'll just become more distracted away from the core objectives. And you'll see already what we are doing is we are promoting where our performance is great. So you look at Leeds Northwest, the triangle as we will call it, Leeds, Bradford, Shipley, Skipton, that network outside of Leeds. We're achieving 90% plus on-time trains. We're achieving less than 2% cancellations, and we think it's time to get confident about where we are good. And that's absolutely something that the customers are reacted to in those areas. For those customers, only use that line. So I think it's all about putting yourselves in the customer's shoes and remembering that at its heart, Northern is actually a collection of lots of local railways.
So what are your priorities then?
Okay,
at the moment? Which lines are you looking at and saying, I am going to make you better soon?
Yeah. So I think that's the approach we're trying to adopt the whole network. And what we're doing is part of a restructuring of the business is making that focus. So moving away from 3 regions and getting down into more localized operating centres that reflect the areas typically of the mayoral combined authority areas. And that way we get that local focus in a way that we probably aren't quite achieving as well as we could do now. So that's all aligned to the vision of how do we get everything around this the 92 vision.
But where's the low-hanging fruit that you're working on right now? Which bits of the railway are on your pile of priorities?
So I would say we need the Northwest to be better. So already in South Manchester we've seen big improvements, and that's the next place that that's the next place we've managed to achieve real meaningful improvements. So we're going to start promoting that, and it's a question of then just going around the network where we know we can deliver it, and a lot of that is what we can do ourselves where we know. So we're talking a lot about Leeds Northwest. Well, that's largely because it's relatively unique to us. So we know it's relatively in our control. So they're the kind of areas that are much easier for us to influence and take that level of control of, because we know it's largely our railway.
Sweating the details is always so important with a network like Northern, which, as Alex says, is really a collection of local railways. And so Nigel asked Alex about one particular issue that so many customers complain about time and time again, and wondered whether with Alex's laser-like focus on customer service, something will now finally be done.
Hobby Horse 2, Alex,
Yeah.
Leeds, and you're aware of this. It just seems whenever I go to Leeds, I'm made to stand outside the train, and then a crew will show up at the last minute, a minute before departure time, and he shut the doors behind them, make us wait some more,
Yeah.
and then barely get away on time. And it's happened so many times, it seems routine. And I've been told there's Transect things and security, but it's not. It's a management choice to do that, because I think South East and South West just leave the trains up. They put the customer first.
Yeah.
When are we going to start doing that at places like Leeds?
And you're right, Nigel, we've got to find a way. We need to find a way of getting out the idea of excuses and processes and complexities, and that's hopefully what I'm here to do. I love simplicity, and I love the idea of putting the customer first, and that's exactly what needs to happen here. It's exactly what we used to do in the bus operations I used to manage. We had a rule that bus drivers must be on the bus 5 minutes before and doors open, welcome people on board and get away on time, and it's the kind of approach that we need to do more of, and that's for me to help influence our operational colleagues and how we come together as one team to deliver that kind of service that you quite rightly expect and deserve, Nigel.
Sceptics will point to the cost and time overruns on the Northumberland Line, and no doubt pick holes. Supporters will point to the specific challenges that the project team have had to face and successfully overcome. No one, however, can say that it has been anything other than a success with the people that matter most. The communities who, after 60 years, now have their railway back.
Train at platform 1 Newsom and Ashington. This train has 2 coaches.
We'll publish a full video of our trip on the channel soon, so do keep an eye open for that. In the meantime, we're making the most of being here in the northeast, and we're off to visit Stadler's depot at South Gosforth. South Gosforth, easy for me to say. Tomorrow.
We are indeed. And that's going to be really interesting. So we're going to see the new Class 555 Metro trains, which we actually saw one. I wasn't quick enough to get some footage.
You were filming the other way.
I was filming the other way, yeah. So the new trains there, which are, you know, I mean, they are a big leap forward from the existing trains, which don't owe anybody anything, by the way.
They've delivered
They
tremendous
really have been fantastic. But you mentioned we're going to South Gosford, £70 million depot. That'd be great to see. So, you know, I'm actually very much looking forward to that. I think it'll be really good.
And it makes you realise how long these things take to bring to fruition.
Yeah.
Because I think I'm right in saying, I remember the announcement of this fleet being ordered, and it was when Philip Hammond, remember him? Was Transport Secretary.
Yeah.
Because I remember thinking, well, Petrolhead Phil announcing a new fleet of trains.
Yeah.
And look how long ago that was, and they're only just getting into traffic.
I mean, the interim, we've had COVID, right? And I think that we've got to bear in mind that did throw a lot of stuff out of alignment. But yeah, you're right, it's still been a very long process.
But even notwithstanding that, they've had their issues and little problems with them, haven't they?
They have, and it's going to be interesting to talk to Stadler about that, because the 777s, which are the Class 777s, which are the ones over in Merseyrail, have also had some challenges. And I think it's a common refrain, isn't it? New trains seem to have issues, and no matter how much you try and sort out with that, it seems to be a problem. I hope we can talk a little bit more about that. Stadler, of course, are a huge player in the UK market now.
And in all sorts of different ways, aren't they?
And that's absolutely right. So they've got the Flirt sets, which they've got in Greater Anglia.
Greater Anglia.
Successful.
Working very well.
And they've also got the same concept coming into the Transport for Wales in the Core Valleys in South Wales. But that's not all they've got. They've also got, they were the guys that built the 68s, the Class 68s, the diesel electric locos. But they've also got, they've got 93s, which are the tri-modes, the Rail Operations Group. They're building GB Rail Freight's Class 99s, which are actually quite different. Those are electric diesels. So they've got, I think, something like an 8,000 horsepower electric.
And the Merseyrail stuff.
And they're building the Merseyrail stuff. So they really have, and I've probably missed something out there, so they really do have a lot of stuff in the UK. They're a big player in the market.
And it's not like it's like all 800s, so you touch it. They are very different.
It's very different stuff.
Very different sort of trains.
Yeah.
So we're looking forward to finding out all that tomorrow, you see. A couple of Lancashire lads going on a shed bash tomorrow.
Well, you could put it like that, yeah.
We still love it, don't we? But there's a related story emerging from this, in that they announced only this morning as part of the spending review, didn't they, that there's going to be funding for, they described it on the radio as London to Sunderland, and I thought they're already doing that, but of course this is part of the old Leamside line via Washington, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
So that's going to be that's going to be good fun.
It is. I mean, this is a project.
But not for a good few years.
Well, not for a good few years. It's a project that's been in the offing for a long time. It's very logical, actually, if you think about the route. The line goes down to Sunderland, down the coast, then comes inland to South Hilton, and then it will come back up the Leamside and sort of reconnect just north of Washington. So he'll do another big loop, which is quite good.
And Washington was a bit like Corby, wasn't it? A big town with no trains.
Absolutely right. I mean, we've been slightly caught. I mean, I can't believe that the government didn't check with us first. But of course, there was a big announcement today. I find that quite odd, by the way, Nigel, that the spending review, they're obviously getting some good news out. I thought the kind of protocol was you talk to Parliament about this stuff.
I wonder what the Speaker thinks.
Or maybe that's a budget issue, I don't know. But there's a lot of stuff is clearly going to happen with mass transit, stuff like this. So we'll have plenty of content for our show next week, that's for sure.
But you said that this extension has been talked about for a long time. In which time the costs have shot up from £750 million to the best part of
Yeah, they're now going to talking of that sort of numbers, aren't they?
of £1 billion.
But you are right. Washington is one of those areas where, it's a very large area without a line. There is I can't remember the name of it. There's a sort of a high-tech park, I think, that's in the area that needs to be served. And of course, the Leamside line, a little bit like the Ashington line, the alignment is still there. So you'd like to think it's going to be relatively straightforward, or more straightforward if there was no alignment at all.
It never is, though, is it? We like to think it's clear the bushes and grade the ballast and stick some track down and off we
never
go.
like that, no.
And it's not really like that. Because the Leamside line, I think I'm right in saying, never actually closed. They just stopped using it.
Well, funnily enough, when
Somebody will correct us if I've got that.
well, probably will. When I was at Virgin,
All right.
all those years ago, we bid for the East Coast Main Line franchise, of course, in 19.
I remember it well.
And one of the things we were going to do was reopen the Leamside line and have direct services going through that way. But there you go. Who would have thought it that I would have been writing a bid that reopened old railway lines? But there you go.
Well, there you go. There you go. And of course, that big thing of that bid was the high-speed bit in the south, wasn't it? It all seems so long ago now.
Yeah,
doesn't it?
from just south of Peterborough to just north of Doncaster, somewhere. Either Jim Steer or I have got the ordnance survey map that we did where we plotted the route. Now, wouldn't that be a thing?
Well, yeah, because I have a sneaking suspicion it flattened my house. But
I think that was actually part of the scope. I think that was in the design brief. Whatever you do, flatten Nigel.
so there's a curve. There's a little. There you go.
There you go.
Anyway, unfortunately, some sad news now is that Sir Bob Reid, the former chairman of British Rail, died this last week at the grand old age of 91. Very fitting that we're here in Newcastle, and this is how his obituary in The Guardian last week began. Love this story. In the spring of 1990, the Chief Executive's office at British Rail received an urgent telephone call from the area manager here at Newcastle on Tyne, saying there was a one-armed Scotsman wandering around the main signal box claiming to be BR's new chairman and wanting to know how everything worked. I love it. Was it all right to tell him? The man was, of course, Bob Reid, who had recently moved from Shell, where he was the UK chairman. And I understand that sort of behaviour, I never knew him at all, was typical of Bob. But I do love the idea of a signalman hearing stump, 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 stump up the stairs.
It is
and
lovely,
a
isn't it?
one-armed Scotsman walks in, demanding to know how it all works.
I didn't know him well, but I did know him. I'd met him quite a few times, and I briefly did something with him, he was a big supporter of the arts, actually, sort of young people getting into the arts. He was a remarkable man. He was tough. He was very tough, but very decent, very fair. He had lost an arm. I think he'd lost his right arm. His father if I recall, had a butcher's shop, and it was an accident in his father's butcher's shop
God.
when he was only maybe 8 or 9 years old, something like that. But he said, I've never let it define me, and he was a remarkable man. He didn't agree with the way the government privatised it. But he stuck there because he felt it was important to show leadership, and provide some continuity. Yeah, no, he was a thoroughly decent man, and I've chatted to a couple of people who knew him far, far better than I did, and they all remember him with great fondness. So no, he's 91 was good, but it's a great loss. It's a sad
But
loss.
what are the odds that BR should have two chairmen with the same name and came to be known as Bob Reid 1 and 2?
One after each other, of
Yeah.
course. And absolutely right. Were they one after each other? I think they probably were. I forget. I can't remember whether I never quite remember the order, but I think they do. I think they were one after each other. Yeah.
Almost as much of a coincidence, Richard, as you driving up here today and finding yourself behind your dad in his car on the A1, and he lives miles away. What a wonderful moment to ring him and say, look behind you.
He wasn't driving, I hasten to add, so he could look behind him. Yes, I realise this is nothing to do with the railway podcast, but it was a very strange moment as I was driving up the A1M, and there is my father's car, and he was off on a proper jolly, actually. But it was one of those surreal take two moments.
That's just a great story. But also on the subject of sadness, Gordon Pettit as well.
Yes.
Died, career railwayman, legendary manager, wild of hair and eloquent of voice. A lovely bloke. He was, of course, general manager of the southern region at the time of
He was Clapham.
Clapham, and then
Yeah.
Purley
Yes.
very shortly afterwards. And I always remember Gordon. He figured out very quickly it was the railway's fault, and it would never happen now, would it? But went on TV, I think, the day after and said this was down to us.
Yeah.
The signalling's safe, but there was a problem with an upgrade. Offered his resignation. Bob Reid cannily turned it down because he knew that Gordon would do a good job of sorting it out.
Yeah, and which he did. I mean, what a man he was. He was, again, tough, old school, thoroughly decent. I mean, just a great integrity. In later years, he was quite frail, but the mind was as sharp as a trap. He was just an extraordinary,
He was
intelligent operator.
and I knew him pretty well because I had the good sense to recruit him as a National Rail Awards judge
there you go,
years
right.
ago. And Gordon chaired the panel for Operator of the Year, which meant that category was always absolutely valid. Because if Gordon Pettit said you were the Operator of the Year, you were Operator.
You had got it.
You know, and it blended performance figures with Anthony Smith's view, with and all the rest of it. And he would go out and he'd ride on trains and he'd do his due diligence. I'll just tell you one little private story about Gordon. When I was editing Rail, we came round to one of the Clapham anniversaries, and because I knew him well, I rang him up and said, "Gordon, would you consider writing your general manager's recollections of that awful time, in retrospect, from what we can learn from it and what it was like?" And he says, "Nigel, I very rarely say no to you, but I am doing this time." He said, "I have written up my full recollections of the entire Clapham business, and it is strict instructions it's not to be published until after my death."
Wow.
So that's sitting there somewhere, but he says, it affected me deeply and I don't really want to talk about it. I've done it, it's in there and it's raring to go. But Gordon was essentially a very decent.
He was, absolutely.
If there's ever a word to sum him up, it was decent. But apparently, if you got a meeting with him without coffee, you knew about it.
Well, indeed. Well, look, rest in peace, Gordon. If there is a railway in heaven, then you know that right this minute, Bob Reid's just been appointed chair and Gordon's the chief executive. So
And he's now reorganising it.
and it will all be working just fine.
So thanks for everything, Gordon, and as I say, rest in peace and right away. And now it's time to thank everyone who supports us. First of all, our thanks to RIA, the Railway Industry Association, our programme supporter, and to Rail Business Daily, our media supporter. We really do appreciate your support on the show. It helps us make us what it is. And also our usual big thank you to a long list this time of people who've left us super thanks on YouTube this week. And we have been blown away by your generosity, so thank you. It really does help us move the show towards real sustainability. And you all are: Bob Walsh, Alan Kirkman, Staffordian, Adrian Headley, Marion Bloom, Mark Woods, Graham Webster, John P, A60 Stock, Stu Anderson, Nigel Mapston, the Independent Brigline Rail Group, Graham Whitley, Mike Ashworth, Alistair Rutledge, Chris Exley, Ed Crosthwaite, John Stokes and Jonathan Brewster. So again, thanks ever so much for supporting us like that. It helps us to do things like visit the Northumberland Line as we did today. So thanks very much, and we'll bring you loads more stuff like that if you continue to support us.
Absolutely. And thank you also to the brilliant support of our members. And we do have some new gold and silver members there: Adrian Walker, Rob Blake and N Tutty Engineering. You can see a list of all our members and supporters, to whom we're enormously grateful. At the end of the show, we put it all in the credits. If you're a gold or silver member, please do remember to drop us an email to info@greensignals.org with your address. I'm still missing a few, and I've got mugs to send out, and we'd love to do that to say thank you to you. So please do that, and we will get you your goodies that you get as part of your membership.
Indeed. And now it's time for this week's Railway News Roundup. So, big milestone for HS2 this week. The very first platforms that passengers will use on the line are now being built at Old Oak Common Station. Engineers have begun installing slabs for the platforms in the underground box at the station. There will be 6 platforms at this super hub, long enough to serve 400-metre trains. There will then be a further 8 surface-level platforms for Great Western, Main Line, Elizabeth Line and Heathrow Express services. And here's my favourite bit, Richard. I love these numbers. There will be 1,960, approximately, precast concrete slabs measuring up to 4 metres by 2 metres, creating the platforms. I love it. They've got somebody there, whenever there's a new press release, you can imagine, what shall we use this week?
It's great, isn't it? It was a shame. I mean, we got invited to that event, but unfortunately now there's so many of these, and we can't go to everything.
No.
No, it's a wonderful achievement. It's great.
But don't stop inviting us, because we will.
No, don't. Absolutely, please don't. I don't think they will. Now, here's an interesting story. Network Rail is one of the largest consumers of electricity in the country, unsurprisingly. So this is a really interesting story. They've agreed a deal with EDF Renewables to provide 64 gigawatt hours, which is a lot, right? It's a very large number. Don't ask me what the unit of measurement is, but it's a lot.
How many light bulbs it would?
I don't know.
For how long?
64 gigawatts, anyway, of clean energy at a fixed cost every year for the next 14 years. That's enough. However much 64 gigawatts is, it's enough to provide about 15% of the electricity Network Rail needs to power the offices, depots and stations they manage. So it's huge, actually. It's quite a big thing. A year of the clean energy in this deal is enough to power London-Liverpool Street for 9 years. I mean, that's extraordinary, isn't it? So EDF Renewables is apparently starting work on a solar farm at Blois Grove in Norfolk. It'll save around 60,000 tonnes of carbon dioxide, CO2 emissions over its lifetime. Network Rail says the next step is to move all of the electrical requirements in their offices, depots and managed stations to solar power in the next few years. So that's good.
It is. I remember seeing a news story a few years ago, some survey that if they could put a tidal generator in the Severn estuary, it would provide enough electricity to power our entire electric railway network.
Is that right?
That's what I read when they were talking about what they could do. It always stuck in my mind.
There you go.
So there you go. Right, I like this one, Richard. Thanks to Alan Morton, around 300,000 journeys have been made on the, I always get it wrong. Is it Levenmouth or Levenmouth?
I think it's Levenmouth.
Levenmouth.
I think so.
Please don't pile in. I haven't consulted the pronunciation units. I should have done. Since it opened a year ago on June 2nd, 2024, the line cost £116 million, is apparently having a significant impact on the local economy, with businesses seeing increased footfall and new businesses starting up in the area. See, Richard, they built it and they came. It's been so successful that a second train every hour was added in ScotRail's May timetable change, and additional carriages have been added to some services, so more people can come.
Yeah, I know. It is good. And I thought Bill Reeve, when he was on the show, made a very, very powerful argument for that particular line, yeah. Now, loads of people have sent us this one, and I know you'll have a view on this. So we've had something from Jonathan Brewster, Steve Roberts, Andrew Kirk, John Kirkman. I know some of the viewers who sent us this. So First Group's Lumo is going to start running its 5 daily open access services. Now, by the way, from London to Stirling from spring 26, quite a few people have said to us, I thought the railway was full. Well, it possibly is, but these paths were already granted and in the calculation.
So it's not on top of stuff.
So no, this is not on top of what's there already. And actually, I think the only spare capacity on the West Coast South, according to Network Rail, are the hours in which this train doesn't run, because it's only 5 daily services. It means there will be the first ever direct services to London from Whifflet, Greenfalls and Larbert. Now, First Group Lumo have done a deal with Eversholt for 5 Class 222 6-car trains. The 222s are the Meridians that were on East Midland. That's the East Midlands version of the Voyager. They're now waiting for a response from the ORR as to whether they can extend their Edinburgh services to Glasgow. Now, I think they've said, First Group Lumo, that they will consider buying electric trains to run on a 400-mile railway that's fully electrified, if they get an extension to their access rights in 2030. But for now, they will be running Meridian diesel electric multiple units the entire way from London to Stirling. I just put that out there.
Well, you know my view on this. I think it's utter madness to run diesel under the wires the whole way there when we've spent, you know, infrastructure money on electrifying a railway. I do think it's mad.
Yeah.
And I really object to more short trains eating capacity at that rate.
Yeah, I've got probably more of a concern for that than the power thing. I believe, maybe we need to see if somebody from Network Rail can just confirm this. I believe there are issues around power supply anyway, in many areas on the route.
Okay.
So in fairness to Network Rail stroke First Group Lumo, I think the ability to put more electric trains on has
All
got
right, I
some
could be
constraints.
concerned about that, but what about the capacity issue?
Yeah, I mean, it is disappointing. It is disappointing, but look, I don't want. Let's not get into another open access discussion because we always get shouted at. Well, I get shouted at.
Well, you've had some fan mail, haven't you?
I've had some fan mail on that, yeah. But anyway, there you go. It's happening, and so if you live in Stirling, you are going to get your direct London service from 2026. So that's a positive thing.
Competition for Avanti.
Indeed, yeah.
And that is the news roundup for this week. If you'd like to send us any snippets of news, you can drop us an email at news@greensignals.org, which is a bit I always forget, isn't it?
Every single week. So well done for not forgetting it.
Yeah, but you see how Stef's written it, so I can't.
All right.
We can't promise to read them all out, but if we read yours, we'll attach your name to it and name check whoever sends us the emails that we actually use. So please keep them coming. It can be big stories, little stories, local to you, national. We don't see everything, so don't assume we already know. We'd rather be told several times
Absolutely.
than not at all. And you won't often hear me say that.
Now, before we move on to the quiz, which we normally do next, one bit of news. So on Monday next week, I'm just trying to remember when that is. That'll be June the 9th, won't it? Yeah. So on Monday, June the 9th, we're going to take a bit of a risk and we're going to do a live Q&A show, not just to our members, which we've done before, but to everybody who wants to get involved. It'll be at 6:30 on Monday, June the 9th. If anybody's got any questions that they want to submit, it would be very helpful to have at least a few in advance so we can break the ice that way.
Prime the pump and get going.
Indeed. info@greensignals.org, please, if you want to do that. But we will put the link to the live stream onto our social channels. We'll put it on our website. So do look out on either on our X account or on our Facebook or Instagram account or on our website. And we will have, I know it's not without risk, but it will be fun. The last one we did was terrific.
It was
really terrific.
It was, but all without the aid of a safety net.
It was all without. It's live, and we'll have a go at answering anything you like. So live stream. Check out our. In fact, I think what we'll do is we'll probably pin a post at the top of our YouTube channel page so people actually can see what the.
So there you go. I was going to say, do your worst. No, do your best.
Yeah,
please
treat
us gently.
Indeed. Well, treat me gently and maybe Nigel lesser. That's fine. Which means it is now time to do the quiz. Now,
always a joy.
Always a joy. Thank you. Last week's question was, what was a thumper? And then you added to it and said, and why?
And why is it
why?
Well, yeah.
I think this was the most number of answers we got for a quiz.
Well, even I knew this again.
Ever. It was a huge number. The answer, of course, was, I think it was it the entirety of class 201 to 207?
Yeah.
There was Oxted line services, there were the Tadpole ones that had the one vehicle that was wide. Those are obviously the Hastings line trains. But they were all, they all had an English Electric diesel engine mounted within what I would call the guards van sort of area, rather than
it was in the
floor.
passenger compartment rather than outside, above the soul bar rather than below.
Absolutely, they were thumpers, and they got the nickname thumpers because of the noise that they made when they were idling or actually under power. It was a dramatic sound. Do you ever see any?
I never saw or heard one.
Well, you can. There's the Hastings set, I think, is still around.
We didn't get too many of them at Burnley Barrett.
Did you not? All right, okay, fair enough. You got Craven's DMUs instead.
From Accrington.
Interesting fun fact about them, which I only really learned not that long ago, because I was not a Southern person either. They had a black triangle on one end, but not the other. And the reason for the black triangle was that was the end where the guards van was, and it was to help the station staff know which end the luggage van, the guards van one, when it came into the station. So if the black triangle was there, you knew it was that end, and if it wasn't there, you knew it was the other end. So there you go. That's what that was for. Anyway, literally dozens and dozens of answers. And the winner, randomly chosen from all the correct answers we had, was Cliff Owen.
Well done, Cliff.
So well done, Cliff. If you send us another email, please, to quiz@greensignals.org, we will get your mug, your quiz winners mug, out to you. Right, this week's quiz question, and this is a question that comes from a listener. It's a really good one, this. So thank you to Paul Godwin for this one. And Paul asks, where in on Britain's railway was there a station bearing the title of junction, but was never, ever an interchange point between, more than one line, right?
What a great question.
It is a great question. Paul thinks there's just the one. I think he could well be right. It's possible.
But we can't be sure.
Well, we can never be sure, because what we have discovered is that green signals are very smart. You can't have a station that no longer, so Yeovil Junction, I don't believe, is a junction anymore, but it was once.
Yeah.
So the station,
The never ever be.
the station we're looking for, at least one, it was called something junction, but it never had an interchange. If you think you know the answer, quiz@greensignals.org, please, by midday on Saturday, June the 7th. We'll put all the correct answers in a hat and select a winner at random, who will get a Green Signals quiz winners mug.
I'm well deserve it. I'm looking forward to that one.
It's a good one. It's a cracking question.
I have
Thank you. Well done, Paul.
absolutely no idea.
Yeah. Good. For once, we've finally found
Three weeks is a good run for it. It'll never ever happen again.
No.
And here's a good story to end on, which we always try to do. The Railway Benefit Fund has launched an auction of rail experiences with a fundraising goal of £25,000 to contribute to the charity's mission of supporting railway workers and their families during times of hardship. The auction promises a collection of once-in-a-lifetime adventures to ignite the imagination, including a tour of the Britannic Explorer and British Pullman trains at Stewart's Lane. Wow. A cab ride on a Class 168 with Chiltern Railways. Any cab ride is always brilliant.
It is.
Freight driver Class 66 simulator experience and a depot tour. And that would be good. Those simulators are really good.
They are a lot of fun.
I had to go on the Virgin Pendolino one at Crewe many years ago, made a complete...
They still talk about that.
Well, I'm not surprised. I shall never forget getting up to 140 mile an hour like the instructor told me. And two yellows whizzed by and I started to brake and he actually laughed out loud and said, no, you're going to need a lot more at this speed.
Yes.
So it's good fun. Bid. You'll have a great time. If you want to find out more or place a bid, we'll stick a link in the additional resources for the episode. What's wrong with my mouth today? On our website.
Indeed. Have you seen that those Britannic Explorer coaches I think they just got moved the other day from Scotland back down to Arlington. They've got this, it looks to me like an almost duck egg blue, a very light blue. They look fantastic. I think that's going to be one heck of a train.
But what a great name, the Britannic Explorer.
It's absolutely brilliant. So yeah, looking forward to seeing that out on the network. Before you wrap up, can we just say a big shout out and thanks to Northern?
Yes.
Who obviously their map is in the background, who've been very generous with their time, but also allowed us to use their office to do this recording. So we genuinely are on location. But thank you to Northern.
We had a great trip.
Wonderful host.
Up and down the Northumberland Line. We came back here, we're doing this. We had the pleasure of having our lunch in a crew metro.
It was terrific.
Good company as well. So thanks to Northern, we really love coming. And we will come back if invited. Well, maybe even if not invited. But sadly, that's all we've got time for this week. Thanks ever so much for watching or listening. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up and follow the channel, sign up. And if you haven't already, subscribe. And if you really want to find out how you can support us, look into joining Patreon or YouTube. Become a member on Patreon or YouTube is what I was trying to say. But most importantly, join my good friend Richard again and I next week for this show, which will always be free. Until then, it's goodbye from me and...
It's goodbye from me.
Have a great week.